All right. Bit of a late start, but that's all right. What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Open Mat Show. I'm your host, as always, Matt. And yeah, I got a pretty good show for you guys today. Got a few things I want to talk about. A few things from the world of MMA. We're going to be talking about the results of UFC London last weekend and kind of how that was a bit of a snoozer. We're going to be talking about uh, the UFC. Are they actually getting lazy? The reason I say that is because we got Mano Kape versus Horiguchi, but it's in the fucking Apex. Which, come on, and we're gonna be discussing the fully revealed Netflix MVP MMA card, and we're gonna be comparing it against the White House card. Um, we kind of did that last week, and I just want to cover it again because there are a few more fights of interest. But my opinion has kind of changed now that we've seen the full card. So we'll get to that. The rumors of McGregor coming back on International Fight Week, that per Ariel, that seems confirmed. So that's pretty interesting in of itself. And we're going to be talking about, of course, UFC Seattle this weekend. Israel Adesanya versus Joe Pyfer. Joe be like Joe Pyfer. Um, yeah, so we got a few things I want to talk about. Maybe we'll be done by 8 p.m. so I could go watch Survivor, but I'm not going to be rushing it this time. I'm not going to be rushing it this time. So yeah, that's kind of what's on the itinerary here. So let me. I kind of want to make the chat box a little bit bigger because I feel like you're barely able to see the chat lately. There you go. We'll give that a try. Um, so yeah, like I said, I kind of want to talk about the results of UFC last weekend, UFC London. So we're gonna get into that. Uh, I feel like this was an absolute worst case scenario for both of these guys, Evlov and Murphy. Um, it's almost comical uh, how like bad they kind of fucked this up. Now, uh, clearly the UFC did not want these two guys to fight for the title. That's obvious, and you know what? I kind of get it. They're both relatively boring fighters. And oh shit, hold on, guys. Let me let my cat out. Sorry, I gotta let my cat out. I can't let Kitty I can't let Kitty be locked in here while I am. Here you go. Hey, sorry about that. Sorry, guys. I had to let my cat out. Anyways, anyways, uh, clearly the UFC did not want Evlov or Murphy to fight for the title, and you know what? I get it. They're kind of boring. You know, they're not really who you want, especially when you have a guy like John Silva in the wings that's really promoting and campaigning for a fight against Volkanovski. And like Silva or not, um, it's undeniable that a Silva v Volk fight would do more numbers than a Volk v Murphy or Volk v Evlov. Uh, so it was seemingly like obvious to everybody that which we'll get to this. It was seemingly obvious that if Evlov wanted to really stand, if he really wanted to insert his name into the title contention here, he would need to do something spectacular. You could say the same with Murphy as well, but I feel like it was more. This is more emphasized on Evlov just because of their styles. Because even though Murphy wins boringly in a boring way, he does it with the hands, and they'll take that over a boring grappler any day. Um, because then you could at least fall back on he's so technical for the striking that people love to use that line. Um, so, but yeah, clearly they were putting these guys against everybody they could, but the champion, trying to get them beaten. And when they couldn't do that, they fucking threw them together to get rid of one, right? And uh, it couldn't have worked out more perfect for the UFC, in my opinion. Um, this was a boring fucking fight. Dare I say, both of these guys lost all of their momentum. Even after the fight, if you're Lerone Murphy, you know what I'm doing. I'm saying bullshit. I fucking won. I could have went harder, but I thought I was winning. Blah blah blah. You know what I mean? That's what I'm doing. I'm pushing that narrative. But he didn't. He fucking admitted, oh, it was a better man tonight. Blah 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 blah. And I kind of saw he was implying maybe he had an injury later on. But you either say that then and there, or you shut up about it. You don't bring that up, like the next week on Ariel or something like that. Um, but I digress. It was such a boring fight that I'm sure like I was seeing a lot of tweets with a lot of likes saying that neither of these guys deserve the fucking title shot, and if people are starting to really feel that way, then these guys are fucked. I'm a fan of Evlov. Um, I kind of like that he tries to talk shit a little bit, even though is that really him tweeting and stuff like that? But I guess I appreciate it. But whatever the fuck he did that night, that was weird. I don't know what that was, and that absolutely tanked his chances for fighting for the belt. Um, this was one of the few fights where I genuinely felt like, holy shit, this might be rigged or something. Because listen, going into it, I fully expected Evlov to strike with Lerone the first round or two to quote unquote prove a point. But the fact that he really stuck with it throughout that entire fight until like the very end when he absolutely had to, that was just really fucking weird, right? Um, it was just weird to watch, and it kind of made me feel bad. It was like, man, like you shouldn't have to do this, man. Like it. I listen, I get it. I don't like to watch the grappling and the wrestle fucking. I like the grappling, but I don't like to watch the wrestle fucking and the crotch sniffing, so to speak, and all that. But it was a little depressing to see Evlov in there try to do all this crazy striking shit. And you know what? He wasn't even doing too bad as the fight went on. He was gaining more confidence there. But the fact that when he went to the wrestling, there was such a skill gap between him and Murphy, it just kind of made you question, like, what the hell are we watching? If Evlov really wanted, it seemed like he could have wrestle fucked and possibly got a submission early on. Who knows? Um, but it makes you think that because how easily he would get the takedowns. Clearly, it seemed like he could have held Murphy down. It was just absolutely boring as hell. I completely forgot to switch. It was absolutely boring as hell to watch. I mean, I watched the whole thing. I was kind of at the edge of my seat, but as it went on, um, yeah, it was just really weird to watch. Yeah, I guess that's what I mean. It was weird to watch. I wasn't fully engaged, other than what the fuck is Evlov doing? At first, I thought maybe he was injured or something, but again, when he did take down Murphy, he did it with like no resistance, so it seemed like that he could have done that at any point. So it begs the question, or actually, yeah, even his corner was telling him, go for the rest. And I was like, I know, but like, but what? It begs the question, uh, what the fuck got to him before this fight that made him um do this? Now, like I said, it was pretty obvious to everybody, and I don't think Evlov, him and his team are a bunch of idiots, right? Um, his manager, at least, they're not dumb like that. They know that he has a boring style. They know why the UFC don't want to give him a title shot. So I figured he would try to go out there striking, but to keep it up that long, it was a little weird. Um, like I said, it gave off rigged vibes. Now I doubt the UFC went backstage and straight up said, if you hold him down for this amount of time, you're not getting the shot or anything like that. They wouldn't do anything to put their fucking livelihoods at risk like that, right? But I'm sure they somehow got word to Makayev, whether through his manager or someone else, his teammate, or the media, things like that. Maybe they just kind of implied, we need something big here. We need something big. And that's really all they have to say. Maybe they just casually mentioned something big would really secure it for you, blah, 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 like wink, wink, nudge, nudge, which I think that's realistically what happened. The team kind of read the room, and also the UFC probably spelled it out for him a little bit. And, and yeah, it- I don't know. The whole thing was weird. And you know what? This is just a gut feeling. I even almost felt like I almost felt like the corner was in on it too, and they were saying you need to take down Elmas to make themselves look innocent or something. That was just a weird gut feeling, schizo thought I had at the time. Who knows? It was just really fucking weird. Um, the card itself was pretty boring. Oh right, Makayev lost a point. Evlov, what the hell? Evlov lost a point, and he still ended up winning. Where it seemed like it should have been a draw, in my opinion, at least from my understanding of scoring. I thought Evlov won that fight. I did, but if he lost a point, doesn't that make it a draw then? Because I thought it was 3-2. I don't know. Um, MMA scoring is very subjective at this point, and I don't really try it. I'm not gonna try to act like I understand it. Uh, But yeah, that was just a really weird, odd fight to kind of cap off the night. The card itself was kind of mid. It started off not bad with Chanel Dyer. but it kind of went downhill, to be honest, from there. Ewo beat up Austin Lane. Uh, I don't know. They're probably going to keep Austin Lane for like 2 more fights. We're going to see Austin Lane versus Gable Steveson in a few years, I'm sure. Uh, yeah, I mean, there really isn't much else to take from that card. Luke Riley looked all right. Um, sharp hands, but to be honest, he's not world beater, in my opinion. He's not going to be, top of the line guy. I don't think he's going to crack the top five, to be honest. He seems a little too chinny. But it kind of was a mid card. And the crowd even showed it. The London crowd is always like a notoriously really great crowd. Everybody knows that. But the big thing people were talking about was kind of how dead it seemed and how during the main event there were a lot of empty seats. And it really makes you wonder, or I guess I should say it really speaks to the issue of fans being priced out and how is this affecting the UFC. For the longest time, we've been saying that it's not even real fans at the events anymore. It's not the people that you want at the events reacting. It's celebrities and stuff like that because fans are getting priced out. And then when they're getting there, it's not even a good fight. It's kind of a mid fight that maybe an actual fan would appreciate more than like a celebrity. And that's just the truth, uh, in my opinion. At this point, tickets are expensive. Everything's getting expensive for everybody. Um, and yeah, like I said, ticket prices are only going up, and I doubt they're gonna come down anytime soon. Um, it's, I mean, especially now that there's not pay per view points coming in. Yeah, they're making their money as is with the deal, but they're probably going to be hitting these other marketing revenue streams even harder, like merch and stuff like that. So um, I'm sure everything is going to continue to go up in price. And uh, the fact that the UFC London, like I said, the London is always known to kind of have that loud. I sorry guys, I want to say boisterous, but I didn't. I didn't want to misspeak. A very boisterous crowd, and they just didn't this time. It didn't help that the fights were pretty boring, right? I was gonna say how could I forget MVP Sam Patterson, but how could I not forget MVP Sam Patterson? Am I right? That fight fucking sucked, dude. I was out getting food, and um, I remember thinking, like, oh man, I had it on my phone. I was like, oh man, I don't want to miss it, whatever. By the time I looked back down at my phone because I'm a responsible driver, it was the end of round two, and I was like, damn, I'm gonna have to go back and watch it. Luckily, Twitter let me know I did not need to do that. I didn't even watch it in the last round. I thought it was fucking boring. But I remember thinking, just seeing through my peripheral, I said, man, are these guys fucking moving? Like, did my stream freeze? I would glance down just to see if it froze. I mean, every time I looked down, it looked like MVP was doing his little bounce. And, I know there's a whole storyline of, they don't care about us, Michael Jackson, blah, 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 blah. That fight was an argument for reducing fighter pay. I'm sorry, that was unironically one of the worst fights that people have seen. I'm not gonna say I've seen because I fully didn't see it, but I went back and watched round one at least, and I kind of got the idea from there. All the clips, everybody's reaction, it's pretty clear. Uh, I was told one of my buddies that is into MMA. He told me that this was probably like top five worst cards he's ever actually seen, or worst fights he's ever actually seen. He said the card was pretty shitty too, um, which I kind of agree. It wasn't all that. And again, it makes you wonder: is the UFC really in a slump era? Everybody's been saying that for a long time, and honestly, a few months ago, I was against that. I said, give it some fucking time. They're holding out for this Paramount deal. Once this Paramount deal is signed, everything's gonna level up. Everything's gonna be announced. The ball's really gonna get rolling. Um, that hasn't happened. That hasn't happened. Um, I mean, it's about to be April, and we all, at least me, I thought that the reason they didn't announce all these good fights coming up was because they were saving them for the White House card. Now that we got the White House card, that's clearly not the case. Um, there were a few things people were really looking forward to, potential venues and things like that. A big one was Kape versus Horiguchi. Uh, it seemed like that would have been the perfect fight to do in Japan. There's a lot of stadiums over there. I don't want to misspeak again on it. Um, but there's a lot of kind of gimme choices over there. They've been talking about they want to build over there. So they announced that they're fighting. It was kind of rumored they might go over there too. Um, and then of course it's in the fucking Apex, which uh, that's just pathetic. I should say it's disheartening. Um, it just sucks. And I get it. They're adding seats. They've added seats. Good for them. Haha. I don't know. I'm sure those tickets are real fucking expensive. I don't even know. I've actually never looked it up. Um, but it just leaves a lot to be desired, and it almost makes me not excited because like Horiguchi is a fighter, in my opinion. He would excel if he were fighting in front of people. If he were fighting in front of people, um, he's the type of guy. Yeah, he wants to cut promos and things like that. He's gonna get a crowd pop. Um, the fact that he's gonna be in front of the Apex, in front of like 100 people, 200 people, it just sucks. Especially when he could have both of these guys have roots, dare I say, in Japan, and obviously Horiguchi, but Kape, he had a career over there. If you get both of these guys over there in Japan, oh my gosh, that could have been fucking huge. But I can't say I'm surprised. I really can't. The UFC has had a record of doing lame shit like this the last like year or two. And I don't know, man. It almost reminds me of Walmart. Walmart used to be open for 24 hours during COVID or before COVID, but they kind of used COVID as an excuse to temporarily shut it down. And then it went from temporarily to just permanently. There's no more 24-hour Walmarts. That's kind of what the UFC did with the Apex. Once COVID started, they brought in the Apex and like, this is a temporary thing, you know what I mean? Things like that. I guess, or towards the end of their Fight Island, things like that. Uh, and then now that everything's over, COVID's over, it's here to fucking stay. That just sucks. Um, yeah, I feel like everybody talks about this all the time. There's not really much more I can say to add to it. Uh, yeah, I wish that like I could be a media member almost there, just so somebody where somebody could ask Dana, dude, what do we got to do to fucking show you guys we want to go to these events, either make the tickets cheaper or just have more events. So naturally the tickets are cheaper. Fucking, I don't know, do UFC, what's a random ass, do UFC Ohio, do UFC fucking Indiana, they shit like that. I don't know. Really kind of travel around. Don't waste it in the Vegas Apex anymore. It's real expensive to even go to fucking Vegas nowadays. A lot of people don't go to the strip anymore anything like that. So I don't know. It doesn't make too much sense to me, but obviously, who am I to say anything when they just keep getting bigger and bigger? They just signed a $1.1 billion deal. Now, unless some crazy shit happens, I do not imagine them signing a bigger deal 7 years from now. I think this is as best they gets, but um, who knows? Who knows? They've been the fastest growing sport for the longest time, and it's for a reason. Um, but yeah, it's absolutely pathetic that we got Horiguchi Kape in the fucking Apex. That's gonna be a great fight in of itself. Like Japan or not, that should be in front of people. That fight should be in front of a lot of people, a crowd, because that's probably gonna be a banger. Uh, I know that's crazy to say, considering Kape had that boring fight with Makayev before, and that was uh, highly hyped up. But Horiguchi is not Makayev. We know Horiguchi's gonna fucking go and go for that finish, go for a dominant victory. Um, but yeah, like I said, there's not much more I can say of that. Hopefully, the UFC steps the fuck up. Even John Anik himself has acknowledged that the UFC has kind of been mid lately. As you can see, I'm using X. It's not really loading up right now. I had all these tabs preloaded, but it's not going as smooth as I thought. But make sure to follow me over on X at OpenMatShowLIVE. I react to pretty much all the MMA news live right away, and I respond a lot quicker over there than my YouTube comments and stuff like that. So make sure to check me out over there. Sorry. Um, but yeah, John Anik, he said it hasn't been a great few weeks, and that's kind of been the sentiment. I feel like for everybody, uh, the fights they just haven't been that. They haven't been hitting hard, and trust me, guys, I was giving the UFC a lot of like grace. I'm not like a UFC hater or anything like that. Um, but I can somewhat agree with that sentiment. The BMF card, Holloway Oliveira, that was supposed to be the one to kind of bring people back. It was like, you know what, it's been feeling like a slump, but this is gonna get me back into it. and the fight just didn't deliver. It really didn't. Um, and it sucks, especially when you saw them stand and bang in the middle at the end of the fight, um, because it's like, damn, I know what I like. Like it's that, not that exclusively. Obviously, this is MMA, but um, I'm sure you guys know what I mean. That's what we expected for that fight, and it didn't fully deliver. Um, the White House card, great fights there. Ilya, we're getting Ilya back and all that. Pereira moving up, that's interesting. But again, it just feels like something's missing about that. Even this Netflix card that everybody's kind of hyping up. Even I was kind of glazing a little bit, just in terms of casual appeal and stuff. None of this is really like hitting the way it should. And I'm a proponent of it's an interesting time right now, almost like a upcoming renaissance era because right, you have actual kind of other promotions not really competing, but they have their own lane. BKFC, Dirty Boxing, RAF, uh, the Grap Hype. You have all these interesting things. You get to see your fighters, favorite fighters, compete more often. Um, a lot of right. You have Jake Paul kind of stepping into things. I find that interesting, at least. Uh, but it's weird. It still feels like everything's not hitting the mark the way it should. And in my opinion, other than marketing and stuff like that, I think there's a lot more the UFC could do at least to really push MMA. I genuinely feel like there is somewhat of a lack of stars issue. There aren't really there really isn't anybody anymore. The new competition, they're not really talking that shit. They're not really making a big splash. The ones that are winning, they're kind of grinding out to victories. Um, they're very efficient. They're not getting the knockouts. Yeah, you have like a Peyton Talbot, but even a guy like him, I feel like isn't even uh, reaching his full potential in terms of stardom. Could he? Yeah, he still can. It's not too late. Obviously, he's still early in his career, but like uh, the UFC would have to give him the push, and even then, is that enough anymore? Uh, UFC has lost a lot of casual appeal, at least from my experience, my anecdotal experience, my buddies and people around me. They don't really know what's going on with it anymore. The last big thing that they kind of remembered, other than the White House announcement, was Tom Aspinall getting eye gouged. Uh, but once they kind of saw John Jones wasn't on the White House, they were like, "Oh, okay." They don't know who Ilya is. Um, that's a big thing I kind of argue with people on over on X is that Ilya isn't that big of an American star in my opinion. I don't even think it's my opinion. I think that's objective fact. He's probably big internationally. He has big numbers and stuff, but um, my buddies don't know who he is. My true casual buddies, they don't know who he is. Uh, it's a little crazy actually. They don't. I mean, they even kind of know who Oliveira is. They know who Pereira is. They know who John Jones is. McGregor is obviously. They know of Pereira. They know of Aspinall, but they never heard of this Taporia guy until I showed them. So the fact that that's the main event of the White House, it's not bad, right? They actually, weirdly enough, they actually know Justin Gaethje. Um, but anyways, the fact that it's the main event of the White House, it just kind of I don't know. I almost want to say sucks the air out of the room. But the reason I'm kind of bringing that up is because we got the full Netflix card announcement, MVP card, and I kind of want to go over it again. I want to compare it again. Uh, like I said, in terms of viewership, I said this last episode. In terms of viewership, the MVP Netflix card, there's a chance it could beat the White House card. Last episode, I was a little bit more confident in the MVP card. Now, not so much. I don't know. I think I think Ronda Rousey's a big name. Everybody knows her. She's one of the few names, MMA names, that are truly like that transcended the sport for a little while. Yeah, she's fallen off a bit, and a lot of the newer MMA fans never watched her fight or whatever, but they've certainly heard of her, I'm sure. Unless they're like really young. I heard of her when I was in school and stuff like that, thanks to guys like Joe Rogan saying she would beat up Floyd Mayweather. Um, so I do maintain that the fact that you'll see Rousey Netflix, that's going to be huge. Now, I'm not unk like fucking, the Ariel Helwani's out there saying You also know Gina Carano and all that. I never watched her fight. I think I was like 8 years old when she last fought. So, I don't really care about her. But I gotta say, my true casual buddies, they know her from The Mandalorian, and they know that she got canceled for saying some shit. She got fired from Disney Plus or something like that. So uh, that actually brings in like a new audience. I wasn't originally gonna watch this probably. Um, so that kind of has something going for it in terms of like draw power, MMA draw power, combat sports draw power. Carano isn't that big of a name unless you're an OG of the game. You're old enough. Um, but Carano actually does have that casual appeal. Obviously, if you stick Jake Paul to it, that'll probably get a lot of views. But I got to be honest, I do think the Jake Paul as a promoter gig that gets views, but not to the level people think it does. Um, for example, the Dana White thing, I think gets more views in that sense, unless Jake Paul truly gets involved, which we'll get to that. Obviously, we got Francis Ngannou on here. He's a very casual name as well. Um, Even though it was just announced that him and Renan Ferreira just did 10,000 pay per view fights in the US, that is fucking abysmal, even for the piracy era. But Ngannou has casual appeal. That doesn't translate into views or buys, should I even say? Um, but people know him. My casual buddies knew him, and he was at least casual enough to be on Jackass, right? Just his physique alone and name alone, Ngannou, um, it kind of sells itself. You really just got to take a glance at the guy here, lineal heavyweight champion, and you go, "Oh, that makes sense." Um, his highlight reel speaks for itself as well. He's kind of the full package here. So that sells itself as well on Netflix, in my opinion. That's a good addition. I would say the big one though, the biggest addition is Nate Diaz versus Mike Perry, which again we talked about this last episode. Nate's a massive casual name. My buddy thought Nate was like one of the goats, just because of how big of a name he was. Mike Perry, he's not like a massive casual name like that, but for those that watched that are light combat sports fan that liked Jake Paul boxing and stuff like that, they'll probably be aware of Mike Perry, especially if you're just into the influencer boxing world. You'll for sure know who Mike Perry is. But those are the big three, and I was curious on the extra fights they were going to add. I did say that that'll be the real decider, and uh, like I said, we finally got it. I would say the most interesting fight on here, in my opinion, um, is Muhammad Makayev versus Adrian Moraes. There were rumors it was going to be Muhammad Makayev versus Mighty Mouse. That'd be fucking awesome. That would truly be like a massive fight right there, I feel like. But, Mighty Mouse said he's retired. Um, but this isn't a bad fight. This feels like a true hardcore fight right here. Like, you're going to want to actually watch this to see, what's up with Makayev and see how he's doing. Moraes isn't no slouch. That's a proper opponent for Makayev, I would say. Um, as for everyone else, I'm gonna be honest, it's kind of ass. I mean, Despain is on here. That's not bad, I guess. Cross, Parnas, that's not bad at all. But I would. This is a PFL level card. If we're being honest here, right? I'm not gonna try to polish it up. It's a PFL level card. It it's only getting a lot of extra glaze, like I said, because of the top three at the because of the three fights at the top. You got Ngannou, Rousey Carano, and Nate Diaz. Uh, those three on Netflix, those three on a thumbnail actually, they bring in views. That even worked for my fucking channel. Um, and just everybody was putting in their thumbnail. Netflix is putting it in their preview thumbnails. Um, that's gonna bring in a lot of views, and the fact that it's on Netflix, that's massive. But let's, in terms of like actual fight quality and everything, the White House fucking mops this absolutely, without a doubt. Even if you get the highlight reels and stuff, the highlights for a lot of these guys, it's gonna be older footage, and that is always obvious in combat sports highlight reels, any sports highlight reel. You could tell when they have to go back and get old highlights for a modern fight. Um, Most of these guys fall under that umbrella. Not so much over here, although few of them, I guess. But the big thing that I said that the White House card will have is is the fucking US government. Are they going to market it or not? Um, at first, I thought absolutely. I said a few months ago, I said, listen, Trump is going to speak on it all the time. Anytime he did speak on it, it got massive views and engagement on Twitter and things like that. Um, but considering that the US is in a fucking war right now against Iran, if they start speaking on and promoting a fucking UFC card in the midst of this, uh, that opens themselves up to a lot of criticism, in my opinion, at least. And it probably, like, realistically, it probably would. And I'm not sure they're gonna want to go down that path. They're probably just gonna let the event happen, let it pass by. Who knows? And to that end, that's kind of almost why I think the card isn't that good. They're like, you know what? We're like both sides are kind of good with it. How it turned out, the UFC doesn't have to blow a big load on an event they're not going to make money on, and the White House doesn't need to, make it. They're not really letting the UFC down by quiet it, keeping the mouth shut on it, stuff like that. Obviously, that's a little schizo theory of mine. Um, but that's almost the vibe I'm getting here. But the biggest thing holding this White House card back is not the fact that the Americans going to get slept in the main event, not the fact that the co-main is between a Brazilian and Frenchman, uh, not the fact that it's opened by fucking a dude named Lopez and Garcia. Uh, the fact that it's on Paramount Plus, I think that's really like that's the reason why I think the Netflix card can actually compete with the Paramount card. If this were on if the Netflix one were on ESPN or anything like that, Amazon even, Prime, HBO, they would be fucked. They would have no chance in hell in beating the UFC White House card. But the fact that they're on Netflix, everybody has fucking Netflix. Netflix, like when you think of streaming platform, you think of Netflix. Everybody has it. Grandparents have it. I'm sure you know a million people with fucking Netflix. Everybody you know probably has Netflix. It's really hard to beat that, especially when you open it. You know how Netflix promotes their shows at the top. Um, it, they're always gonna have a banner, and they're always gonna have something up there coming up when you open Netflix. Uh, your father that liked Ronda Rousey back in the day, knew the McGregor fights, stuff like that, liked the big boxing fights back in the day. He's gonna open Netflix, and he's gonna see, oh, Ronda Rousey's back. Be sure to watch that, and I think that alone is gonna really bring this up to the level of the White House card, and we just got to see. We got to see. Obviously, the big three at the top of the MVP card. That's what's carrying it. Nothing changed from last week. Yeah, Makayev and all that, but that's just amongst MMA fans. They already kind of won all the MMA fans over. Regardless of what you think of it, you're probably gonna at least engage with it in some sense, whether they be on social media or whatever. And that's good engagement for them as a startup here. But we just got to see how things go. We got to see how both marketing things go. Um, right? I mean, we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out who's a better promoter here. Uh, I'm curious what's gonna be the biggest event of the summer. I don't have much more to say on it. They're like I said, these fights are all right. They're not bad. I know a lot of people were saying they wanted Despain versus Ngannou because like why would you do Lins? But I get it. Kind of build it up, right? Um, I'm sure Despain is gonna whoop JDS's ass, and then Ngannou's gonna whoop Linz's ass. And if they ever do second MMA card, you could do Ngannou versus Despain on the main event, or Rico if he decides to come over. I don't know. It's very interesting. Um, and yeah, now my thing is there is I said this. I'm kind of repeating myself from last episode as well, but the UFC they do always have an ace card if the White House event isn't the biggest card ever. Conor McGregor's return per Ariel Helwani, he's back. International Fight Week, he's back. Per Conor McGregor, he is back. He made a post saying that he will be making his return July against a former BMF champion. Now, the rumor mill blew the fuck up. There's a lot of different theories as to who he's referring to. He could be referring to Max Holloway or Jorge Masvidal. Those are the two guys. Now, the reason Masvidal kind of came out is Masvidal said he turned out an offer from MVP to be on the Netflix card. Oh my gosh. As he's currently working on a UFC return. And he did say the UFC had something for him. They're working on something for him. former BMF champion. Conor McGregor saying he's fighting a former BMF champion, 170 weight class, pretty big name. That really adds up. However, Ariel's coming out saying that it's Max Holloway. There are no talks at Jorge Masvidal. It is Max Holloway. And, obviously we can't fully take Ariel's word for Bible here, right? But he tends to be really accurate. It would be a fool to bet against him with this stuff. He has more access to resources than I could have, at least. Uh, so when he says that, I kind of believe him. I tend to believe him. So it seems like we're leaning towards Max Holloway versus Conor McGregor. And a lot of people think Conor's going to get slaughtered by Max, this and that. Probably at a catch weight 165 or 170. This might be like my craziest take. I think that's actually a winnable fight for McGregor. That doesn't mean he is going to win, but I think it's a winnable fight for McGregor. I could see him, clipping a Holloway because, Holloway obviously isn't gonna grapple or anything like that. Or Holloway's gonna, have a master class. Per Chael, obviously this is Chael Sonnen, so you can't fucking trust it fully. But he said that he knows McGregor was offered Carlos Prates, and he said yes. If that's the case, that's pretty cool. But I doubt Carlos said no. We know Carlos came out and said that wasn't actually offered to him and that wasn't a real offer. I don't know. I just thought that was worth noting. I think Chael is just trying to build up McGregor because, they're homies. But, if that ends up being true. But if McGregor really does come back, I think he has 2 more fights on his contract, right? I do believe he wants to fight out his contract. So I think that if he comes back, he's going to fight relatively soon after, regardless, win or lose, in my opinion. If he times it up well, it could be Diaz 3, it could be Chandler. Hell, if he goes out there and fucks up Max Holloway, call out fucking Ilya Taporia or Oliveira or something. He could really insert himself back in there. He's Conor McGregor. As long as he hasn't been forgotten by the public, he is always 1 to 2 fights away from a title shot, and that's just the truth. So there's a lot of real opportunity for him here. Do I think he's going to stick around? Like I said, if it goes away, I think it could. He goes out there, beats Holloway, bad, call a fluke KO or whatever, calls for Ilya Taporia. That could potentially happen, especially if Ilya has beaten Arman at this point. That would make perfect sense then because there's nobody else in the top 5 for him to fight. But that requires, in MMA, when you try combat sports in general, when you try to align the pieces like that, it never works out. So I doubt that happens. Obviously, Ilya, like I said, Ilya would have to get through Arman unless the UFC really wants to keep hoeing Arman like that, which they might. They might. We kind of saw after the Evlov Murphy fight, they don't give a fuck. They'll keep doing it. I actually laughed out loud at the post-fight press conference after Evlov and Murphy, where they asked Dana White, is Evlov next? And he goes, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I just laughed the second he said that. And then they asked him about John Silva, and he goes, I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. He had a smirk on his face. Again, I think he does a lot of that to kind of troll a little bit, but I feel like he was letting his real emotion slip there. He's not saying what is going to happen, but he was kind of implying what he wants to happen. He doesn't want Evlov next. He wants Silva next, but he does know that Evlov is probably the right guy. So they're going to go take a look at it, which they should have already looked at it. They had their matchmaker meeting, I believe. So we know Volkanovski wants Evlov. He came out and said as much, but he'll do whatever the UFC wants him to do. Realistically, he's a good company man. So who knows? We might get Volk v Silva. But I was talking about Conor McGregor. Yeah, again, I feel like there's not really much to say about him either, other than we could be smacking our lips. He might be coming back, this and that. But it does seem like we're the closest we've been in a long time. Poor Michael Chandler. He's probably. I feel like one day we're gonna see he's gonna fucking kill himself or something like that. Especially with how nice he is online. I don't know. It seems like a farce. But anyways, let's go ahead and move on to the final topic. I want to go over my picks for UFC Seattle 2026. We got Israel Adesanya versus Joe Pyfer. I'm just gonna be going over the main event here. Honestly, it's a pretty good card in my opinion. Just looking at these fights, at least on the main card, I haven't really taken a too close look on the prelims. I see we got Chase Hooper and Bahamundis here. But looking at these fights, these should be some really good fights um, for the most part. So we're going to go ahead and start here at T Rex versus Kyle Nelson. Um, this is going to be a train wreck of a fight, as we know with T Rex. Now, I'm just going to keep it real here. I got T Rex here just for the simple fact is if you look at he has a pattern, okay? Where is he? Let's take a look. You see the stats here. As you can see, for the last 2 years, every time he loses, he wins 2. Then he loses and he wins 2. So he lost his last one. That means he's going to win his next 2. So because of that, I got to go with Terrence McKinney. I know Kyle Nelson won via unanimous decision against Matt Steamroller Frivola last fight. But who cares, right? Like I said, we know it's going to end in a finish probably in the first round, some way or another. And I would put my money on T Rex. I'm not because I can't risk losing money like that. But I do. I don't know. Like I said, the T Rex is really good at bouncing back after losses. That's just something I've genuinely noticed watching him. And as you can see, the pattern there that kind of affirms my little superstition here. So I am going to go with T Rex just based off of that. Like I said, honestly, I don't think Nelson will be able to keep up with like a T Rex blitz unless he fucking throws something to the wind, which he might. He might. But yeah, I got T Rex there via first round. I'll say KO. He might go for the submission there. He did kind of do an interview saying he wants to fight different, but I'll believe it when I fucking see it, right? So I got T Rex. We got the next fight. We got Mansour Abdul Malik versus Yusri Belguri. This is actually another really good fight. That's probably going to be a car crash as well. I think both of these guys are finishers. I didn't know too much about Yusri Belguri, but I actually remembered him during this Dorado versus Allen fight. I don't remember this Taiga Iwasaki fight. I mean, that was on Contender Series, so he's only fought once a year. That activity isn't, I always hate inactivity. I don't think that really helps anybody. But clearly, based off of his record, when he wins, he fucking wins. He's gonna win by a dominant finish. I was gonna say dominant. Obviously, all finishes are dominant. You should say, right? Not necessarily, but Mansour Abdul Malik. We kind of know this guy. His fights are crazy. It's gonna end in finish regardless. It's gonna be crazy. So I was gonna say Yusri. I'm gonna be honest. I kind of forgot that he has like a year between every single fight. And I forgot he lost to Marco Tulio. I'm gonna be honest, I completely forgot that happened until just now. So I think this is still gonna be a crazy car crash fight. Yusri could still win. Honestly, I don't think we've truly seen enough of him. And the way Mansour fights, that does kind of fit the way Yusri likes to fight. Like I said, a car crash. But we got to go with the experienced guy, the guy that's been in there, the guy that knows what he's doing for the most part. Mansour. I mean, look at that record. Look at all that green on his fight stats. Look at that. All these fucking finishes. The one loss was a draw. It was a weird ass fight. Yeah. So I got Mansour Abdul there. The next fight, we got Larian Douglas versus Julian Arosa. If I remember correctly, yeah, I was gonna say I think his last fight was on Contender Series, so this should be a layup for him. Hold on, let me make sure that I'm thinking of who I'm thinking of. Where is he? Douglas. Gunslinger. Yeah, he fucking beat Cam Teague. I don't know, man. Just because you beat Cam Teague, that doesn't mean shit. I feel like everybody beats Cam Teague. I don't know. I don't want to say it's a layup fight for him because, like I said, he just beat Cam Teague. Darren Elkins ain't bad. C-Rod ain't bad. Ramos is he ain't bad either. But I'm actually gonna have to go with Arosa here. Just because I do not rate Cam Teague high at all. I feel like we've seen a million guys make their name off of Cam fucking Teague. And yeah, I'm just gonna have to go with Arosa here. Who knows? This should be the layup for Larry and Douglas, but like I said, I just don't rate Cam T that highly. And I'm a little shocked this is this high on the card. I'm not gonna lie. I I just assumed like you would think T Rex would they would rather have him above these guys just because of how exciting he is, but they must have a lot of faith in Larry and Douglas. I don't know. Next, we got Michael Chiesa versus Nico Price, a retirement fight. The script is in. Chiesa's gonna hit him with a weak jab, and Nico Price is gonna flop like a fucking dead man. Uh, Robbie Lawler versus Nico Price, that was a fight. Honestly, I kind of thought that was rigged. I was like, what? Like, really? Right on the retirement? Regardless, that's what the UFC hopes for. That's why they gave Michael Chiesa fucking Nico Price for a go out fight because he's gonna be on the desk and they need to give him highlights. They need him to go out on a big victory. So I got Michael Chiesa there. This is supposed to be a layup fight for him. I don't think Michael Chiesa is that ass yet. And he's gonna knock out Nico Price in the first round, probably. And get a nice emotional package better than Stipe's. All right, we got Alexa Grasso versus Macy Barber. I don't know why it took me here. I got to go with Macy Barber. I feel like prime for prime, Grasso is a little bit better, but Grasso has been kind of looking washed lately, in my opinion, a little bit offbeat. So I got to go with Barber. She just kind of has all the momentum with her. And yeah, kind of Grosso's been riding that Shevchenko win for a while. I don't really see her having leveled up her game from her last time out. Whereas it seems like Barber is making progress, getting better. So I got Barber here just via unanimous decision. She might submit Grasso, but I got Barber unanimous decision. Obviously, we're here to the main event, the fight you're all here for, Israel Adesanya versus Be Like Joe Pyfer, Joe IBS Pyfer. Pretty good fight here. You can already tell who I want or who I think is going to win based off of my thumbnail. I'm just going to keep it real. I think Pyford's going to win. I think Adesanya is better just all around. But Pyfer showed off his grappling last fight. That's honestly really concerning if he get Adesanya down. But I don't even think he's going to need to. I think Pyfer's going to do him just like Imavov did. Adesanya still has that good offense, in my opinion, when he really lets it go. But his defense has just been shot for a while, man. His defense was very dependent on his footwork, how quick he could be, and things like that. And he hasn't been that guy in a while, to be honest. I just think he's gonna be moving backwards, and Pyfer's just gonna kind of spielitz him with a 1-2, crack him, drop him, and kind of punch him out from there, or submit him from there. Even he's gonna get a cry, be a real big deal and all that. Which I get it. I would react like that too if I beat Israel Adesanya. He's kind of made a heel or a baby face turn, because everybody was really hated him after UFC Mexico when he pulled out, because he drank the water over there and called it a shithole or something like that. But he retracted some statements he said about Bo Nickel. He's been being very respectful the last couple of fights. He's been growing on a lot of people. Me as well a little bit, but I kind of like him as a villain. I hope he stays a villain, but we'll see. If he actually goes out there and colds Israel Adesanya, he might not have a choice. He might have to be the fucking villain. But who knows? I'm just having a lot of trouble seeing Adesanya winning this fight, and it's so crazy for me to say that, because this is a very winnable fight for Adesanya, or at least it should be. But Father Time does that. That is life. That is the world. Everybody gets old, and fighting's a bitch. It doesn't wait for anybody. You get injured once, you take any time off once, and you're out of the game for good. This just makes us one step closer to Adesanya versus Sean Strickland. We'll see. We imagine that, right? Sean's fighting for the belt, whereas Israel Adesanya is headlining a fight night. There goes my arm. Israel Adesanya is headlining a fight night. What a fucking world, man. And you know what? It makes sense both guys are where they're at, too. This isn't like some weird fluke circumstantial shit. This is legit. So, yeah, like I said, just an interesting time in MMA. let me go over my picks again really quick. Pretty straightforward. I got T-Rex here. Like I said, the pattern is in, the script is in. I got Mansoor Abdul Malik here. We don't really know that much about Belguri. He's not active enough, in my opinion, although he can still win because he's kind of a car crash fighter himself. I think Mansoor, he's just going to keep his momentum going. I got Arosa here because this dude's claim to fame is beating Cam Teague on fucking Contender Series. That ain't shit. So I actually got Arosa. Kies is going to knock out Price in the first round comically for a beautiful highlight reel to send him off to his desk job on Paramount. I got Macy Barber. I think Grosso's kind of washed a little bit. I'm losing my voice. And I got Joe Pyfer. I think Adesanya's better than him. He's going to forever have a better career than Pyfer. It's just right now Pyfer's a better fighter. That simple. There's a chance he knocks out Adesanya. But I think he's going to wobble him and then take him down and submit him probably. So those are my picks for UFC Seattle. I want Adesanya to win. I do, but he's just not, man. He's just a bit washed up. It's really sad to see. We go on the prelims here. We have some interesting fights on here, honestly. O'Neal, Tybura, Chase Hooper, Bahamondes. That's not a bad fight. Ricky Simone, that shouldn't be bad. Bruna Brazil. This is actually a pretty good fight. Simone and Yanez. But yeah, it's not going to be a bad card. What time is it? 8 p.m. Okay, that's a good time. I love that. But yeah, I don't really have much else to say about it. It almost feels like none of these fights are in, like, they don't matter. I don't think any of these do. I guess you could say Barber and Grosso, but like, does it really? Who cares, right? Yeah, I mean, none of these fights matter at all. I don't think any of these guys are fucking ranked, except, yeah, I mean, you could say Pyfer Adesanya. Pyfer's gonna go up and fight for the belt, but come on, Pyfer versus Chimaev, really? We know who's gonna win that. As long as Chimaev's the champion, it's the division's dead because I don't think anybody could beat him realistically. But yeah, that's kind of the state of MMA, I guess. I don't really have much else to talk about, to be honest. Let me check X one more time to make sure I'm not missing anything. Bit of a short show, guys. I mean, trust me, I'm not rushing. It's not like I want to watch Survivor or anything. But I mean, there's nothing really crazy to talk about. Oh, I did see this. Tommy Fury versus Eddie Hall. That's really fucking interesting. I want to see Tommy Fury versus Jake Paul, but looking at this picture, Jake Paul fought at heavyweight. I was gonna say Tommy's too big, but they fought at heavyweight. Yeah, I mean, it looks like there's no new news or anything like that. I was kind of hoping there'd be something breaking. Luke Riley looked good in his last fight, but I'm gonna be honest. I already talked about this earlier in the program. Who am I? Ariel Helwani. What's it called? But Luke Riley's not gonna be a top 5 guy. Oh, this is the fight card that's gonna be competing against the Netflix MVP card. It's not a bad fight, but obviously the Netflix card is gonna absolutely destroy this card. There's no competition there. But that's not the question. The question is it going to beat the White House card? But yeah, honestly, guys, I don't really have much else. What do you think? You think Conor McGregor is going to be back? Do you I mean, I think he will be back. I think he's going to at least fight one more time at a minimum. I think he's going to try to fight out of his contract, especially with the current landscape of MMA and combat sports. Mayweather's fucking doing all these fights everywhere. They could fight. Imagine McGregor out there too, right? He'd probably be doing a bunch of fights like that as well. He's probably looking at the landscape and realizing he can make a shit ton of money if he weren't with the UFC right now. So I do think we're going to see McGregor. Per Ariel, it's probably going to be against Max. I'm not mad at it. Personally, I would honestly rather see Masvidal, but it is what it is, right? But yeah, comment down below. Let me know what you think about that. Jeez, I'm really losing my voice. Let me know what you think of my picks. Israel Adesanya versus Joe Pyfer. Do you think Adesanya is that washed? Are my picks casual? Are they not? Let me know. Follow me over on X at OpenMatShowLIve. I tweet and react to all MMA news over there. I'm a lot more active. I think I'm getting sick or something, guys. I'm not gonna lie. I feel a little bit weird this episode. I've been kind of scatterbrained all day, and now I'm losing my voice. So, uh, sorry if I've been delirious this whole fucking time, but that could be a bit why. But yeah, let me know, what do you think of this episode? Make sure to subscribe. As you can see, 100 subs, I'll give away $100. So if you want a chance to win some extra money, just go ahead and subscribe. Make sure to like, comment down below. And really thank you for watching, guys. I love yapping about the fights to you, yapping about the combat sports. Man, I kind of want to talk about Zuffa boxing, but I'm already wrapping up. I guess we'll say that for next week. We'll see how that goes with Jai Opatai and the WBC. But thanks for tuning in, guys. Real small channel, so every single interaction, every single view, every single like, everything goes a very long way for me, truly. And I really, really do appreciate every single one of you that take the time out of your day or night to watch this. So again, I will see you guys next week, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. We should have a lot more to talk about. We're gonna potentially be discussing Adesanya getting slept, or I kind of expect that we're gonna get some good fight announcements and good things happening this weekend, this upcoming week. So we'll see. Stay tuned, and yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.